So if it's Friday and it's noon, it must be live painting time, huh? That's how I live my life. I'm not sure about you guys, but today I'm just doing, I got myself exhausted and in a little bit of a bind the last couple of weeks doing these big giant ones. And I'm going to go back to them. Not that they're giant, 24 by 30, but I went back to what I consider very comfortable 18 by 24 format. And we're going to I decided, let me explain where this came from. It's one of the cool things about being an artist, everybody. I would go into San Francisco 2 or 3 days a week driving while I was teaching on site, and coming home quite often, you get stuck in traffic. All right, on 101 near Petaluma. So this is from my car window, and I wanted to remember. I love the lighting in this, and kind of the beginning. The color isn't real good because it's a shot through a window, and printed, so it's 2 or 3 times removed from the original. But I kind of wanted to remember the color. So what I thought I would do today is take this image that I liked, and I thought about it from time to time doing it, and I thought I'm going to push the color a little bit because I haven't done anything where I really pushed color a whole lot. So I just decided, what the heck, let's do something a little different. I generally don't paint a lot of the same things over and over. I guess you can tell. I know I paint a lot of Venice, so I shouldn't say that. All right, let's do some real quick lines here. We're going to go here. This is about 2/3 of the way up, and it comes about to there. And then we got this tree breaking probably about here. This is off-centered, which I like. Comes down. Look at that angle. Whoa, there's that angle. When I sketch fast, that's the way I look at it. Look at that angle. It comes all the way down. Where does that come to? Right below the middle of the page. Right about there.
Tom has a question already. I know you can paint on any surface, but what would your preference be? Gessoed wood products, canvas, linen, etc.
Stretch linen. Hope that answers your question. I just like stretch linen. I don't, because these are all kind of giant studies. I don't necessarily want to go through 80 pieces of stretch linen. I like a lot of different surfaces. So I'm not completely hung up with any one surface. I love, this is hardboard. And I think I've mentioned to you, one of the reasons that I've done so many things on hardboard is it's, I have a lot of these. It's easy to store. It's easy to store. But generally, I've always found that I love linen, good portrait linen, particularly, and so that would be my preference. I don't care if it's oil primed or acrylic primed, truthfully. I'm very used to using acrylic prime, but over the past couple of years, I've become a lot more interested in the feeling of the oil primed surface. So, all right. So we got enough info in there. That's all I'm doing. All right. Now, I envision the sky. Actually, here, let me show you something. This is not of this scene. This is a little plein air piece I did out at your beach one morning. And I like the color scheme in that a lot. So I'm going to borrow some of the colors from this and apply them to this. Number one, the yellow sky. And I'm going to make the sky pretty darn yellow. In fact, I'm going to start and see what pure Naples looks like. Well, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Let me see. I think I've got a yellow here. I'm going to bring my yellow up. I didn't lay it out on my palette because I wasn't thinking about it, but I thought, I know I wanted to do a yellow sky. And so I may even push it. I said I was going to exaggerate the color a little bit. So maybe we're going to push this yellow and bring in a little bit of white into it.
You want to go over your palette?
I will in a second.
Whoa.
I like it. I just scared Anna. Told you I was going to try and exaggerate some color today. So this is just Hansa yellow and white. And I have a little bit of Naples that I'm kind of scribbling back into it a little bit, just to kind of mellow it out. And it's laid in thin enough where some of this color is coming through. Now, what is this color? Well, I had a gray piece of 18 by 24 done in kind of a neutral gray, and I didn't like it. I just thought it was too dark. I don't like to work on super dark surfaces, as you guys may know. So I literally took white acrylic and burnt umber acrylic and water, and I kind of scumbled over it. Hopefully, I want to be able to get back into the sky. So I don't want it to quite stay exactly like it looks. I want it pretty close. But if I play my cards right, time-wise, I will have time to go back and get into the sky a little bit more, get a little bit of variation in that sky. So right now, I just use this big number 12, kind of a beat up brush that I have. And you can see some of that underneath color coming through because I haven't laid it down real thick. And that can work to your advantage at times. And then other times you don't like it. One of the things, a lot of times people like it because you see the brushwork. You see some kind of active brushwork through it. And there's some tree holes in here and just kind of pop them in. Same in here. Okay. Now, because I've intensified the sky, it means I'm probably going to have to intensify some of these other colors. Also, this sky, this yellow is a darker value than that off-white, right? Yeah. Okay. Let's, I may have painted myself into a corner, everybody, which is good. Let's see a real super failure. What do you say? So grab some sap green. I'm going to give you my palette in a second. And a little bit of cat orange hue. Maybe some asphalt. I kind of want to hit some of these. Yeah, that's good. Right about down in here. And I want to get a lot of color in here. So I want to get this mass laid in quickly. Oh, I should have put the mountains in back behind first, huh? I didn't. Well, that was kind of dumb. Yeah, I'm throwing some alizarin into it. That's what the hell. Told you I was going to push color a little bit today.
A little? It's a lot.
Yeah, a lot. No, it's a lot, but it's not raw color. So it's not pure one color or another. Although here's some more alizarin. Ready for this? And let's throw some ultramarine into that. So I'm mixing in the same pot of color, by the way. I'm not separating all these colors. This time I threw some ultramarine into it, took it a little darker and a little bit more towards the violet. So I kind of see it that way in here. So what do you do when you exaggerate color? You look for the color that's there, and you say, okay, if I had a meter and I could turn that meter up and make that a brighter color, what would that color be? So what you're looking for are these color notes, and then you're taking them a little bit more to what you might think of as an extreme. You got to get some color variation in this thing to work. Now, for some reason, I work way too much on that, and I need to really work back in here a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit of that paint off that brush, and I'm going to kind of mix some colors back in here. Now, I want them a lot lighter. So even the dark colors back in here are lighter than any of the colors in here. And in fact, I just grabbed, this ought to shock you. I grabbed a little bit of, maybe that's my job today, is to shock you. Just as it goes into light, it starts to get pretty hot. And then I'm going to leave it. Now I'm going to, as I once said, I'm going to go to the background. And what is that background? It's kind of green. Still have a little red in this brush. I actually have a phthalo turquoise on my palette today. just because I knew I wanted to exaggerate color, along with the sap green. Oh, I like that color. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I like the color. God, I sound like some of my students sometimes. You know, you go to criticize, you say, well, why did you use that? And, well, I like that color. Yeah, but it doesn't work. Well, this is the hard part, is exaggerate and get it to work. So nothing is raw, meaning nothing is pure. Everything is somewhat muted, even though it looks bright. And I don't know how it looks on screen. Okay, so this mountain, now these trees get really warm, but this mountain back here, it's a lot of color variation. And now it gets a little bit, I'm going to bring some Naples yellow light. You can tell I'm still a little gravelly from my, let me give you guys a piece of advice, okay? Don't get this cold. It's awful. Every time Anna thinks I'm over it, I'll cough. She goes, I thought you were over it. And I said, I told you it's a 2-week cold. It's one of those 2-week colds that comes around. I've had them in the past and I've got it now. It's on the downhill side, so I feel pretty good about that. Although I taught yesterday and I talked a lot, and I noticed that I sounded more gravelly towards the end of the day. So I will go into a Kenny Rogers rendition. If this doesn't work, you can find me somewhere. I don't know where, but okay, let's take more ochre into that green color. I just want to kill something. Oh, look at the little oranges that are coming out. Do I like that? You know, my first inclination was, hey, I like that. Now that I look at it, I don't like that. So if it pops out too much, get rid of it. It's not working. It's that simple. This is kind of fun because it can start laying some nice, super chunky paint down later. Okay, so we kind of blocked something in there. Let's get kind of the golden colors. If that's kind of a green color, that's much more of a golden color. Now they're similar in value. So I'm going to start with a little ochre, and I'm going to bring some white into that ochre. I'm going to bring some cat orange into it, cat orange hue, which is what I have here. I'm going to bring some Hansa yellow, a little bit more ochre. I'm just looking at the color I've mixed on the palette, which is about there. That's way too light. So I'm going to bring more ochre into it because it's closer to ochre. Some greens in there. That's better. Now, one of the things that you need to understand is light. The light is, I'm in the car, right? I'm in the car sitting here. I'm looking that way. Sun is over here. This part of the tree is in shadow. Shadow comes up and envelops the bottom end of this tree. All this is in shadow. All that's in shadow. So it's going to be definitely a darker color, probably a little cooler, but there will be some warms thrown in here and there. So with that in mind, I'm just telling you this because this is the kind of stuff you have to think about when you do this. I know, isn't it? Pain that you actually have to think and paint at the same time. It's funny because years ago, there was a line that was used quite often, and some of you may have heard it, where they referred to artists as wrists. Oh, he's just a wrist. Well, every time you put a brushstroke down, you have to think. So I do take offense to the fact that people refer to that as a wrist, because a wrist means that you're just going through the motions. No, there's a lot of thought process in this. You have to think about what you're doing. You have to make it work. So this is going to be kind of the shadow. I don't want to vent. Sorry, you guys. I used to hear that as an illustrator a lot. Oh, he's just a wrist. See, got some interesting color going on here. Now it gets golden, gets a little bit of a green hint up in there. So I can take the ochre color and I can bring a little bit of that sap into it, bring it a little bit towards the green. If I do, it's going to go dark on me. So I want to keep the value very close to what I'm using. So I could make it more like maybe a little. I got to remember, I've darkened the sky. And because I've darkened the sky, I have to darken that, even though that's probably okay. Yeah, that's fine. That's going to work. If I have to, I'll throw a little ultramarine. Whoa, went a little too strong. But we'll pull a few of these little wisps out. I see little worms happening too. And I say up top. And maybe let's bring a little bit more warm and ochre back into that. So we don't want to stay. One of the keys when you want to start pushing color, don't stay with a color and just keep going. Intermingle. Get your colors working together. So you maybe go in one direction, but at the same time, so I just threw ochre back into that. And I'm going to bring that ochre down into the brighter ochre that I have down below. A little bit greener right here. And it's kind of fun. It's fun because I don't know exactly. I had this image of how it's going to look, and it really, trust me, it looks good up here. But I don't know how it's going to look in reality. You know, you start with a concept. Concept, pretty simple. Exaggerate color. No, that doesn't sound complicated. Doesn't sound complicated. Go to do it. Right? Encounter all kinds of interesting little problems. So we've got our basic color blocks. It's working. There's a dark tree that comes up in front, so I can go back to that kind of darker gray-green color. I think it's this color. Maybe throw a little bit of more warmth into that. And I don't want to get too neat with it because I still want to do more to those trees back there. And if I overdo this, I'm just going to have to mess it up. Green, brown, orange. I'm just moving back and forth to 2 or 3 different colors. And throw a little ultramarine and a little violet. Step back. How does it look? Once again, I'm going to use the same old line that I use, seems to be using weekly. It looks okay. Am I happy with the color? Question I have to ask myself. Am I happy with the color? Basically, yes. Basically. Now we're going to move up into where it gets light, up in here. Right? Like that, I overpainted. Probably shouldn't have. And I can always go back with my paint rag, take a little bit of the pigment off if I need to. Okay? Just so I'm not fighting wet paint. And we're going to build the tree. I'm going to build it up a little higher. But the tree has some greenery and some warmth. It's not a green color. It's kind of a warm. Let's see if that looks. It looks pretty good, I think. I can live with it. It's not quite as green as I wanted, but it's good. It's good to start with. Let's put it that way. So we're going to go up in here. We're going to go straight up, which is we're going to do it right up from here, right up from right there. And that's going to be kind of the top. And I'm painting into this beautiful wet sky. Notice I call it beautiful. That's just to help me think that I'm doing okay. Kind of happy. As of yesterday, we finally put our workshop together for this summer. Not to confuse that with the Academy Study Abroad, which is also going on this summer. Boy, I've done a lot of the same kind of blobby strokes. I just noticed that. Sure don't like that. That means I've got to change it up a little bit here. A little more orange. Too dark. Okay. I can live with it. Let's put it that way. Am I thrilled about it? Absolutely not. Do I think it's working? Yeah, I think it works pretty good. Very seldom do I find that I do something and I go, wow, did I nail that one? I like that green color. I'm not saying I nailed it, but I like the green color. I have to stand back to see if I'm getting the light to shadow relationship right. So every now and then I'm stepping back about 3 feet. And if I'm painting, basically my head is at least 24 inches away. So if I step back 3 feet, I'm 5 feet back. That's the math part of the program for today. Change up that color. I'm going to throw a little alizarin. Felt like I'm using too many of the same colors. Alizarin's got a little bit more of a biting pink characteristic to it. And I can really see it gets really beautiful and golden. I'm going to go back to the mountain colors I was using back here, and I'm going to get some of this beautiful golden color. Works its way down in here, right about there. And over here. See if I can brighten that up. I don't know if I can or not, but I'm going to try. I'd rather be wrong and have that be a color that I can use underneath than I would to try and nail that color right and basically have everything done in the first layer. You want the layers because the layers is what's going to give you the interest in color. Now this, it fades because right about in here is where it goes into shadow. And it's interesting because as I look into those shadows, I see them get kind of acidy of a green. So I'm going to push it that way. Once again, that's what you're doing. You're taking what you see and you're pushing it to a little bit more of an extreme. And that's, I'm dealing with color exaggeration, that concept. Okay. Now there's that big dark hollow in there. And in that big dark hollow, I'm going to try the turquoise. It's going to be way too strong. Yep, it's way too strong. I'm going to pick up a little bit of a blue, violet, and see how this works. Right about here is what I want to hit. Right about there. A little darker. Maybe a little more ultramarine in it. Let's try it one more time. A little bit more of the acidy green. Let's see. And it's interesting because as it goes down, it gets darker and warmer. So as this goes down here, I just put a little bit more brown into that same color. Brown meaning asphaltum. And nice dark shape right there. Right. Guess it in there, huh? Because if it's wrong, you paint over it and hopefully it'll add more interesting color and texture. And there's a little piece up above, right about in here. Couple spots here, works its way up here, a little bit back here, couple spots down here. down into the warmer part. And we want to get, now I want to see if I can push some darks back in this area. So I'm going to take ultramarine. I'm going to take alizarin. That's pretty dark. Let's see what I can get here. Oh, God, I thought it was really dark. I threw a little asphaltum into it. We're going to try it one more time. Okay, we're getting it now. Getting some darks. Right in here, I see a mess. That tree's kind of the star, so that's where I'm, if it looks like I'm spending a lot of time on it, that's probably fact, because it is kind of the focal point of this piece. A little color up in there. So we get that, stand back. It feels good. I'm going to get some ground plane. So we get the whole thing laid in. Where am I? I'm about 25 minutes into it, so I feel pretty good. Okay. Down here, let's get that. I'm going to start with that kind of acidy green, meaning, but the shadows are definitely not green. The shadows, I throw a lot of alizarin right into the same color I was just using. Why? Because it'll make it look darker. And that way the greens will stand out more. So a lot of violet right in here. And if the violet stands out too much, I just throw more ultramarine into it, because the ultramarine brings it back into the cooler color scheme. All right, I'm going to go back to the greens. Go back to some browns, some warms. Alizarin. Starting to come together. My hope is that when it comes together, it looks good. A little bit of the bluer color. Intermix them. Don't stay with one color and paint it in so neat and flat. You'll be sorry. Okay, we got that going up here, right up about there. Then we got a whole bunch of it over in here. That's kind of neutral. It's really hard for me to look at that and determine. I see some browns, but for the browns, I'm pushing it more towards the oranges. So I mixed a little orange into that color. We'll just kind of come in with some shapes. And then there's all this great row of trees right in front. I love that. And what I'm going to use for that is a lot of red, believe it or not. So we're going to get this hill in. I'm going to step back for like 1 second. I'm back. This time I got further back. I'm about 8 feet back. Okay. Tell you what, it looks a lot better from 8 feet back. That's a good sign. That's a good sign. Because you can fall in love with it too much up close. And in doing so, deceive yourself that everything's working. And then you all of a sudden you step back and you go, wait a minute, what happened? And what happened simply is you looked at all the intricacies that you were doing and you're appreciating them from a 2-foot distance. But paintings aren't generally looked at initially from a 2-foot distance. So you want to get back and hopefully it'll start to work on you. So that's a pretty good color there. It's not that dissimilar than that color. And it gets a little bit more towards an ochre up at the top. Same color or same brush. And that's light hits it up here is what happens. That's it. I didn't realize that. Light's hitting it right about here. And then it fades into the shadow, into the duller greens as it moves down. And eventually it goes behind that bush. Break that up. Stand back, look at it. Okay, don't like this right now. I liked it before. I don't like it with that in there. I think some of those colors are too acidy, and it's pretty easy. I just take some ochre and some white and a little bit of sap, a lot more ochre, and we just start piling other colors on there. So that color will be there. It just won't come through as strong. And that's the key. Don't let it overpower. We'll try and bring a little bit of semblance of form to some of that area, providing there's time. But, sometimes it's nice to just indicate it with color and not worry necessarily that it has to be, everything has to be so form oriented. That's better right there. Just those dark greens that I threw at the bottom actually helped a lot. All right. So one of the things I want to do, I got to fix this up in here. All right, we got to try and figure this out. A little bit warmer, right about here. Maybe I'm going to throw even warmer. Even warmer. Probably not too warm, but let's see. Da-da. Just chewing things up. That's a technical term. I've used the same brush for quite a while now, so I'm going to switch over. Switch over to another kind of big, clumsy filbert. I want to get a little bit more sky in there, just because I probably should have painted this down further earlier. It's starting to work. Just starting. Which is, starting's good. Finishing's better. I'm starting to chew that up and make some sense out of it. Now, it's starting to almost be a tree. We want it to be a lot of color, but we eventually want it to be a tree. Okay. So I'm going to get some more of these kind of green goings on down here, so to speak. So we're going to just bring a little bit of slightly lighter green in. Just kind of give a little substructure down in the shadow, so the shadows just aren't completely vacant. Whoa, sorry. Bless you. Thank you. Okay, let's see what happens. I'm going to try. I'll see what I get by with. This is kind of, when you test things, that's what you're doing. You say, let's see if I get by with this. And if you can't, then you tone it down. A little stronger than I wanted, but threw some more ultramarine into it. Let's try it again. I don't want it to stand out too much. I want to keep that nice cool, but it does have a little slight warmth, so I threw a little more ochre and orange into it. It's okay. I'm going to try and throw some yellow into it and see what happens. Okay, let's try this. That works pretty good. That works pretty good. I think I found the color. 3 or 4 tries, and I made it work. See, I like it to mix into the other color because then it creates the shadow. It creates detail in the shadow if I do it properly. Okay. Put a little bit in here. How far can you take it? It's a good question, huh? You find out. And the only way to find out is to give it a shot. Try it. If you don't like it, don't do it again. That's what I was telling a group of students yesterday. To try something, you learn. Part of learning is trying things that you haven't tried before and discarding the things that don't work and remembering the things that do so you can use them in future projects. Makes sense, doesn't it? Okay, it gets kind of dull over in this area. It's not nowhere near as bright, so I dulled it down. But we're still gonna see if I drag that brush, if I put it firm a little bit like this on the top, and I drag it down, it moves into shadow. And then if I need to go back and create form, I can do that. Okay, it's holding together okay. Some of that color got a little too acidy, so I just go over it a couple times. Again, you're just giving it a shot, seeing what'll work. Sometimes I use a firm stroke. Sometimes I pick that brush up and just use it, just let the brush touch down a little bit here and there. So you're varying in that. One of the reasons you're varying it is for the sake of interest. If you stay the same all the time, it creates a dullness. You don't want a dullness. Trust me, dullness is not good. That tree's starting to come to life. I think what I need to do is lighten the sky as it comes down. Hopefully we'll have time for that, huh? Let's keep going, and we might. Where are we at? We're just 40 minutes into it. So I'm feeling okay. I'm feeling time-wise, it's just, I know I want to have time to play with color. And if I don't get enough of it laid in, then I'm going to spend my time worrying about getting it laid in and not giving myself the appropriate time to kind of play with color that I want to play with. I started some of that in the beginning where we started playing with some color, and some of it works and some of it doesn't. And it's what doesn't that you want to go back and adjust. Okay. Got all these little white things I got to get rid of. Those light colors. I have to just knock them back with whatever I've got in the brush. Okay. First thing, there's a layer of bushes right there. Not as dark. Right about here. And kind of a warm neutral, so it's not too, like I like this right under here. It's nice dark, but see how red and blue together. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to lift this a second, you guys. There, now I can go all the way down to the bottom. So I'm using a lot of this, the turquoise and the alizarin to create this. And if I need to, I will bring asphaltum in. There's asphaltum. I see what I can do to some of those in-between bushes that just hit me. Make them a little bit more blue. Show you what I mean by that. I'm going to take the color I'm just using, add some white, and add some ultramarine to it. So it's almost as dark, not quite as dark. What we're going to do is we're going to put a layer. Nah, I don't like that. Throw a little orange into that blue so it isn't quite so. A little bit more asphaltum into the blue. That feels better. And if it went over here, here, and then it works its way back. Shrubbery. You Monty Python fans will appreciate shrubbery. Okay, and then there's some green peeking through on that ground plane, right? And it's kind of a nice yellow green. So I never thoroughly cleaned it. Even though I'm getting a lot of color out of it. So we're going to try a lot of yellow in it and see what happens. Let's see what happens here. I may have too much yellow. Yeah, a little too much. I'm going to throw a little ultramarine into it, let's try it one more time. That feels a lot better right there. And we'll take a little bit of the beautiful turquoise, what do you call it, turquoise? It is a phthalo turquoise. And whenever I use that, I got to throw some umber into it because it just screams if I don't. But I may want to use some of that scream towards the end. And we're going to tickle a little light on the bush right there. We're going to tickle a little bit of light there. Move it across so it comes all the way over here. It's a little on the blue side. Interesting. I'm not sure why, but it doesn't matter why. What matters is that it gives me an opportunity to do a little color variation. I like that. And a little tickle on the top of the bushes. A little bit of ochre back into that to get a little bit more life into it. The ochre right there. And on the top of this, as it goes up, gets a little bit of edge light. But nothing strong. It's not sunlight. Bottom, and when I stand back, the bottom is just starting to work. And I don't want it's not the star, so I don't want to spend a ton of time with it, but it's very important. It's an important part of the composition. And so you just can't ignore it. A little bit of mixture in it. Now it livens up a little bit as it moves over to the right. You go back with that yellow. Yellow that I've got on my palette is really stiff. So very often when I use the yellow, I have to add a little medium or terp or something to it. And there's the basic look of the bottom without doing any sort of refinement. That's what we call a color block in. That's what I would call this right now. is a color block-in, all right? By block-in, I mean nothing's refined. And I have something to build on, which I think is an important thing to realize. That you need to have an element that you can build on. So let's go back into the main tree, because that's going to be a real kind of the centerpiece of this. So I'm going to go to my number, this 8. I think that's an 8 filbert. And I'm going to clean the hand a little bit because I get paint all over it. And we're going to start worrying. That's what I kind of refer to it as, worrying up in there. In other words, let's make that area better. Let's give that area more believability. And as it goes down, it's got to go darker. And the key is, as it goes dark, does it go warmer or cooler? I'm not sure. So I'm staying violet. You know why? Violet can be warm and it can be cool. So I'm playing it safe, so to speak. Throw a little more ultramarine into it. We're going to give a little bit more busyness to this kind of foliage over here. Now I see it gets quite red as it moves over there. So I'm going to bring more of my alizarin. Nope, not enough. Let's try the cat orange and the alizarin into the color I was just using. Well, that's better. Step back. Okay. Starting to work. Let's check our time. 45 minutes into it, half done. So at the half done, I like to start slowing down and being picky. So you're going to see me picking at little things as opposed to really going in and powering down a lot of paint like I did more. In the beginning, that's, for lack of a better word, that's really what I'm doing, powering down a lot of paint. But as the painting progresses, and this is true with almost any form of painting, whether a quick plein air piece you might do, whether it's a studio piece, but it's as the painting, as your time progresses, you begin to slow down and become more observant about certain things in certain areas. So in the beginning, you do what I call an overall look at the piece. Okay, I need to go an area I've ignored. First, I need to get some iced tea. Needed that. Okay, back in here. Let's start to make some sense out of that. I got colors, but with no feeling of what that is. It's just it's a kind of a nice mass of stuff. Okay, so we're going to start to give it a little bit, really subtle though. You can't go too dark or too light on it. If I do, right in here, we start to get some darks. Not darks, but where the tree, right there, so it moves up. I just went into my dirtier colors and just am adding that in. So it's nothing real tricky. I haven't mixed a new color. Oh, and I can see, when I glanced up, sometimes it's weird. You look away, you look back, and all of a sudden you see a color that you didn't see. And I just noticed that some of those darks get kind of warm. So what we're doing is we're busying this area up. And we're busying it up with indication of form, for lack of a better word. Okay? Of information, I should say. We shouldn't call it form. Let's call it information. Got to use that more often. See, so it's just starting to make a little sense back there. Okay, I'm going to firm some of this foreground up to take the I'm going to try these two colors together: the cat orange and the turquoise. Oh, I kind of like that. Gives me a different kind of a warm. Just a little bit, chew those edges up a little bit. Edges are probably one of the most important things you can deal with in landscape painting. And I could actually say that about any form of painting, not just landscape. That edges become, with how soft, how lost, how found, how scraggly, how scuffy. All those are characteristics that will add something to your painting. Of course, it can detract too if you overdo it. So that's a whole other problem. Kind of like that underpainting of red that I have in there. That's interesting flippant colors over in here. Send it down. Stand back. Feels better. Gonna have to really hit the trees in front or the shrubs in front one more time. I know I'm gonna have to do that just to get them firm. Oops. Okay. Let's get those now so I don't have to worry about them later. Then we'll concentrate on boom, 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 this. All right. That's going to be kind of my thought process in terms of where I'm headed. So I'm going to take alizarin. Darkest warm I have. I'm going to take asphaltum and alizarin. Let's see what happens. Whoa, is that red? Let's see what I can get by with that. Maybe a touch of sap into it to mellow it out, just a touch. And we'll worry about edges now. Come up with some nice feelings of edges. Step back. Yeah, that's more or less what I wanted. Interesting edge right there. It's like a baby cypress tree almost. It's got similar characteristics. Whoops. See, every time I push into that color, I'm going to pick it up. So you got to be careful. So you're really reloading a lot when you do this kind of stuff. I'm going to add a little medium to it. It might help it go on easier, and I might get more strokes than 1 or 2 strokes out of it. Yeah, that's true. Interesting, but abstract feelings of edges up front here. Very important. Probably a little too dark back here. Judgment call. Doing that all the time.
So Lynn wants to know, lost and found edges, where do you decide?
Where what?
Where do you decide?
The overall piece, the focal point, all those things are influences as to those kind of decisions. But it really comes down to stepping away from your painting, looking back at it. Also, I also think it's also good to have a little bit of, well, for lack of a better word, a plan. So you kind of have a plan as to where you're headed on this piece. It's not like it's all just happening. It's like, okay, I think I know what I want to do to it. And you tackle it that way. And if it doesn't work, then you adjust, particularly when you're dealing with color and color exaggeration, which is what this is.
And can you have too many?
Huh?
And can you have too many?
Yeah, if you have too many, it's called mush. So there is a degree of trial and error in that. I always think it's better to lose edges, as many as you can, and then go back and decide what you want to find, than it is to go the other direction. If everything, I mean, you know, a photorealistic painting that is done with a perfect, crisp lighting, all the details, everything will be in focus. All right. That isn't always the most interesting thing to look at. Now, if you're a client and you're advertising a product, you may want that. You may want a something to be very, very powerful and strong, and that's a different story. That's a different way of thinking. I felt like it needed to get a little darker back in here. Even here, this tree. It's coming along. I need to kind of work over here a little bit. Okay, I'm going to take my yellow, my ochre, and a little bit of Naples, and we're going to come in with some whites. I think that's about right. And then it really goes pretty light as it goes behind that tree. So before I do any sort of refinement back in here, I want to get some bright lights back on that hill, down below too. Look at this wonderful little bright light right there. A little bit right there. And some orange kind of lights. Whoop. Had some dirt in the brush, huh? And it's going to happen to you. Let it happen. Just don't leave it. You know, I use that saying all the time. It's only wrong if you leave it. I mean, I use that to students all the time. You're going to make mistakes. God knows, particularly if you're doing something like this where you're really playing with color and you're trying things. But if you leave it, then there's a problem. If you get rid of it, no one knows you ever made a mistake. You know what? That's what you want. You want people to look at it and go, oh man, he knew what he was doing all the time. When maybe you kind of knew, but you weren't 100% there. It's a little too dark, but I just did right. Okay. So let's start to refine that tree a little bit more. I've worked all around it. We're got just about 35 minutes. I see this getting greener over here. So I'm going to take that acidy green. Pretty good. So we want to keep it in shadow. Do I see it I see a little bit over here. And maybe a little back in here. Step back. Okay. All right. Start to place the trunks of those tree. It's really pretty color. So I'm going to start. That's too light. That was my first test. I'd rather have it be a little too dark. I'm going to do this. And another one that comes over here. And there's a post, which I kind of like. Usually I don't like put man-made things in, but we're going to put it there anyway. All right. And then as it goes up, it gets cool, it gets warm. So that's the fun stuff. So let's do the cool first. So what are we going to use? Ultramarine. Bring some white into it. Keep it the same value that I was just painting with. Now it gets a little lighter, actually. I could actually make it just a little bit lighter if I want. Let's try this and see how it looks. That's okay. Could probably punch it a little bit more, which is fine. And we'll do the same on the other side, maybe not quite as bright, but we're going to bring it from here up, disappears behind foliage, comes up here, another branch, coming off here, another branch, and coming off there. Okay. Starts to work. Don't want to go too far with it right now. A little bit more ultramarine, a little bit more white. I want to pronounce it quite a bit more right here. I may have pushed it too far. Maybe there, maybe there. Leave it. Okay. I don't want to overdwell on the damn thing right now. I'm afraid I'll adjust it later if I don't like it. I'm just going to assume, never said this before. I'm going to assume I know what I'm doing. I'm going to paint like, I'm going to paint like I know what I'm doing, but I'm also going to assume I'm probably off. I've been called off too. Now, that's clumsy and thick. It's an easy thing to fix. You just take your background, chop it back down. Okay, as it moves up, let's start to get up in this region where it isn't all the same color that I did. It's it goes into some kind of gray or green colors. I don't know how you guys feel, but I have an idea in mind and I'm not positive it's coming off. But if it looks good, even though it may not be the exact idea that I had in mind, I can live with that. So this is what I was hoping to have time to do, is to do some careful variation up in that sky, painting things like sky holes. And it just allows the tree to become a little bit more refined. This is subtractive painting. Some people refer to it as that. I call it negative shape painting. So all of a sudden you start to chew up those edges and give the tree a little bit more care. Search for that word, finally got it. And it's going to need the same kind of treatment down in here. Not as much here. Not as much here. Maybe a little bit right there. But as we move, the more this, I've been known when my painting is dry to go back and just fuss on stuff like this. Things that bother me. Start to chew that tree up. So we're going to take a little more white, a little bit more yellow, and a little bit more medium. I'm going to start to chew some of these trees up just a little bit here. So what happens is you start looking at these little areas where before you just kind of looked at a big mass. Now you're starting to look down into these areas. And you're saying, oh, I see it could break up a little more. And if I do, it'll be a little bit more believable. If I'm not talking, you know what I'm doing? Resting. No, I'm actually concentrating. I'm trying to pick out certain things I want to use because I'm not making it exactly like those trees. I'm making it very good, those style tree, but I'm not trying to copy the exactness. But those edges are starting to feel better to me. I think I'm going to have to probably go back and hit a few positives because I've been hitting negatives for a little bit here. And I go back and forth, positive, negative, positive, negative. When you paint trees, go back and forth until it works. If you can do it in 3 steps, great. If it takes 30 steps, great. Do it until it works. Plein air, you got about 3 stages. You just don't have the time. That's the difference in plein air and studio painting, period. There's a more spontaneity. I used to call, it's interesting, when it was before the vernacular plein air became as popular as it is now, I used to call honest painting. I always referred to painting on location as honest painting. In other words, you're reacting, you're putting it down, and you're leaving it. Where a studio, and not that a studio painting is a dishonest painting, but in a studio painting, literally, you are judging, fixing until it works. So it lacks that spontaneous kind of refinement. All right, not refinement, just kind of some of those wonderful characteristic strokes that people happen to love when they look at old Sargent paintings, or they see these incredible, and what those are there's strokes the guy had practiced for years in doing his portraits and things, but he was now able to apply the concept of some of these looser strokes when, particularly if he was doing fabric, hair, things of that nature. He began to be able to apply it to outdoor spontaneous painting, meaning you're doing it in one shot, one step. And when you're done, you're done. Now, I don't mean you can't go back. There are many artists, and I've done it myself. There are many artists that will go back to the same location 2 or 3, 4 times. In fact, I used to teach a workshop. Probably will do some more of them, what I call large-scale plein air, and where we actually do go back to the same location 2 or 3 times, usually 2 times, but occasionally 3. And so instead of a 2-hour painting, you get maybe a 4-hour painting, or instead of a 3-hour painting, you get a 6-hour painting. 6 hours. I mean, think about it. If you've done a lot of plein air painting, and all of a sudden you go back and you do a 6-hour painting, you could carry it a heck of a lot further than you can when you were just doing those 1-hour paintings or hour and a half paintings. So it's the advantage. And the mileage, brush mileage, thought mileage that you get from just practicing is invaluable, you guys. I can't stress it enough. Boy, I'm getting paint all over my hands. Nothing new, but I don't know. I just dipped my brush, or I set my brush in something. Now, those tree trunks, this tree trunk goes into shadow. It goes cooler and darker, a little more violet as I see it too. So I kind of mixed up a blue-gray violet. Let's see what happens with it. There we go. Let's bring that one down. Let's bring a tree trunk right here. A couple over here. And we'll pull the trunks themselves. I'm going to use a smaller brush. I was using I don't like that. I wasn't getting the thinness or finesse to the, let's try this. So, my liner. Okay, that's better. A couple hidden back in here. And then one that kind of comes from here. You don't have to put the same number in. You can move them. Very often compositionally, I'll move things just because I don't like where something is sitting. I like it. I just compositionally it isn't working with the rest of the piece, so I'll move it. I had a student one time and said, "Are we allowed to do that?" And I went, my first inclination went, "Well, you have to ask permission first." And they actually believed me. I have to be careful about that. Sometimes people believe me too much, and I'm being facetious. It's like the favorite thing that I came up with years ago. If any of you guys have taken workshops with me, you may have heard me bring this up before. I had a student one time. I don't recall. I think it was back at the old Asilomar workshop days. Student said, "When do we put highlights?" And I said 2:30. And then I corrected myself right away because I thought, this if they believe me, then and they're ready to put highlights on things, they're going to hold off. They're going to wait. They're going to count themselves down. No, there's no rules. Painting is, you guys, rules are made to be broken. You ever heard that one? Perfect for painting. Learn them, break them. People don't do this, don't do that. Don't ever put black on your palette. Yet, many painters paint beautifully with it. If it works for you, do it. But the only way you're going to find out if something works for you is to paint. So we always have to watch out for individuals who want to be better. Oh my God, I want to paint. I want to do so much better. And my instructor, Don Putman, used to call these guys coffee shop artists because they talk about it, but they'd never do it. They'd never work. They just talked. And I think that's crucial. You know, I don't want to be crude, but shut up and paint. And keep in mind, it's fun. It's fun. Even if it didn't come out great, hopefully you had some fun. It didn't completely. If you completely frustrate yourself every time you go to paint, you probably shouldn't be painting. I shouldn't say, what I should say is, if you allow that frustration to keep you from work, from paralyze you. And I do know people that this happens with. They just can't work anymore. It's like, I wanted it to be so good. It's not. Hell, I want all mine to be good, and they're not. Work hard, have fun. Didn't come out, nail it next time. There is a next time. Or as wonderful Edgar Payne says, every time an artist sits down, they can't be a genius. You're gonna, no matter how good you are, you're gonna fail. And hopefully the failures come fewer and farther between. And if they do, you're on the right track, man. I remember when I was first learning how to paint, I had some incredible teachers. So very first semester of art school, I went to art school knowing I could draw pretty well, which I could. Couldn't draw as well as I thought I did. I thought I was a lot better. And I did understand certain things. I became more aware of them thanks to some great teachers. But one of the things I remember is I remember watching Don Putman. I mention his name a lot because he's a huge influence on me. Painting class. And they just made it look so damn easy, and like it was just more fun than eating bacon. It's like, and I wanted to do that. And I tried it in his class, never really pulled it off. My first semester of art center, I didn't know what I was doing with paint. We're painting with gouache too. So I went home that summer, lived with my parents to make enough money to go back to college. And so I decided I'm going to do some paintings. I remember Putt had brought a few pieces in that were just exquisite. And I wanted to do something along that line. And he had done them in acrylics, so I had bought some acrylics. And mine came out like crap. Honest to God. And it was it's like, am I ever going to, idiot me, am I ever going to get this? Well, hell, it was my first year of art school. First year. I just expected I'd really get to be good. I was already pretty good. And I'll just get to be better. And instead, I felt like I was going backwards. Any of you guys felt like that? My guess is a few hands are being raised in the air right now, because I know that's the way it goes. Eventually, things started working. Now, how long did that take? When I say eventually, 2 years. 2 years before I finally did something that I felt was pretty damn good. And to me, it was mind-boggling because it just happened. Of course, I didn't realize it happened because of all the trials and errors that I had done before. I didn't realize that. I just figured, I found the formula. It's like, okay, from now on, I'll be good. Well, that didn't happen either. Sometimes I did well. Sometimes I did poorly. And that continues to this day for all of us. My lows aren't as low as they used to be. That's the one thing I can say. My lows aren't as low. You're still always kind of searching for that high, right? It's like heroin or something. Like I know what that is. But it's like you do a painting and everything clicks and it works. Now, God knows why. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the stars were aligned. Maybe you slept well. Maybe it's the subject. Maybe it just happened. But for some reason, it works. And you think, I'm going to go out, I'm going to do it again. And you sit down the next time and it doesn't work as good. And then you're going, what the hell's going on? Wait, I thought I had this nailed. Painting is elusive. It is not clear cut that every time you do it, just because you've done it in the past, every time you do it, it's going to work. It just isn't that way. Wish it was. Trying to get the light as it transitions from light to shadow right in here. Enough art philosophy, huh? I'm letting out all my grievances for when I was learning how to paint. Actually, I hope that's helpful because I generally just think it's the way it is. And that, truthfully, the same thing happened. Here I got to where I could, particularly models, man, put a model down. I was doing okay. I could hit it most of the time. I was teaching, so all of a sudden I decided I'm going to do some location work, plein air work, so to speak. And it didn't come out very good. And it's like, what's wrong with me? I could paint. I know how to paint. I've done movie posters. I know what I'm doing. So what happens? I used to paint too dark outside, too contrasty. And over the years, a friend of mine who was an ex-student, who was a good painter, told me something he had heard at a workshop. And my friend is Dan Cooper, by the way. Some of you guys may know Dan. Some of you know. Fabulous painter in his own right. Trust me. You guys would be oogling if he was painting right now. Said, try not to paint anything darker than a cerulean blue in value when you're painting outdoors. Went, yeah, okay. And to me, that made sense because my work tended to look too dark, too contrasting. So I started dealing with that concept, and it actually made a difference. I don't think of it now that way. I hold what I do now is I hold my darks. I don't push my darks. If I do, it's right at the very end. It's not early. Okay, so that tree is starting to take on some focal point right about now. I still don't like this transition that's going on in here. And we've only probably got a few minutes left. So yeah, got about 10. So let's see what we can take this last 10 minutes. First thing I'm going to do, I said I was going to try to do this. I'm going to grab this flat here. I'm going to grab white. Going to find a clean spot on my palette. And I'm going to grab some Naples. And I've got to pick up my yellow again. I got a different yellow here. Let's try this yellow. Cat yellow deep. It's more of an orange yellow, which is, no, not more of an orange yellow. It's an orange yellow. I hadn't used it for a while. Here's my more or less Hansa. All right. Very quickly, I take some of that Hansa and some of the other and some medium. And I'm going to mix them in with that white. And more of the Hansa. And more of the white. And more of the white still. This is where I would more or less be using a palette knife to mix with. I'm mixing up a big blotch of paint. I just want it a little bit lighter. There we go. I'm not going to have the time to go in and nurture all those edges quite the way I want. But what I wanted to do primarily was lighten that sky as it came down to the horizon. We're like this. I'd go over the whole sky, not with this color. But probably I'm not going to have a chance to do that. So I'm just going to bring it down to where the trees are, kind of lose it as it goes up. So it blends a little bit. Actually, that helped. I like it when I think you do things and then it actually works for you. You have a concept in your mind. Okay, if I do this, this will save it, right? And then you do it and it doesn't save it. Those are bad. That's bad when that happens. It's really good when you have, this is what I think I need to do, and you do it and it goes, yep, I was right. And if you're wrong, keep working. Okay, so let's take, we're down to our last 5 here. Let's take some of this foreground, start to, some real nice acidy color, biting, and I kind of like it. I almost wish I had a little bit more of it. So I think I'm going to add white and the turquoise. Let's see what we end up with. Yeah, a little bit. That's a little stronger than I want, but what the hell?
I keep saying, miles on brush. I love to look back at my previous pieces to see the advancements I've made.
Yep.
Even if it's a little at a time. Isn't that what painting's all about?
It will be a little at a time. Trust me. You said the right words. Even if it's a little at a time, it is. You'll make giant strides every now and then. Something will just click. And you'll go, wow, whoa, see, that's gross. But you're going to do certain things at certain times and it's going to work. And you're going to go, wow, got to remember that. And as I said, I think what happens is sometimes you're not even going to understand why. Now, why am I telling you that? That's how I live it daily. I was just trying something, doing some architecture, doing a series, working on my show for Charleston this coming February. And the show is on Charleston and New York. So I've gone through all my old images, done a little bit of painting, particularly in Charleston, plein air, not a lot, a little bit. But I'm going through my images and I'm finding things and I'm trying new things. I don't want to get boring. I want to paint the same kind of, I've done, particularly New York, I've done New York shows before. So I've tried different kinds of subject matter. I generally don't paint the same thing over and over and over again. But I've learned a few things in doing that. A few things that I think work pretty well. And so hopefully I'll be able to kind of keep that in my quiver, so to speak, of things I will use in the future. Well, I've nurtured out that but the last thing I'd probably do is just really sit and fuss on the edges of the trees, like right in here. I see I could get a little bit going on. So our exciting news for the day, and you guys are probably going to love this because it's pretty damn exciting. We had a new garage door opener put in. Well, that's a fun color piece. I'll give it that. I think I could push some alizarins a little bit more here and there, but you know, it did kind of what I wanted to. It doesn't have quite as much, believe it or not, color as I was hoping. I was actually hoping for a lot more, and I think I got a little timid here and there. See some oranges in the shadows that I could probably find, like right in here. But it was a fun piece. The effective part of it right now is this. It's not as effective here, but it's effective down here where I've got this sky, or excuse me, the mountains are casting a shadow on the bottom of those trees. I think that it's working pretty well. I think I could have some more warms. Just started to notice them back in here. And maybe right about but it's a what the hell, it was a fun try. Part of it came out pretty good, part of it I don't know. I have to wait and see how I feel either later today or tomorrow whenever I look back at this. Nothing else. I hope this whole approach, I thought it was either this or a seascape, so I think probably what I'll do next week will be some sort of an ocean scene. I want to do another animal, but I'm not sure when I'll stick that in. But for all intents and purposes, this is pretty close to, I think, done, until I get away from it and realize that it's about 8 or 10 more things I want to do to it. Thus is painting, everybody. So we are just about out of time. And so what I want to do is, I think Mike's helping us today. Is it Mike? Mm-hmm. I want to thank Mike. Mike put together a really nice time lapse piece for us last week, because the one that we didn't work. So he did it without even knowing we were messing with it. Came out great. And so I really want to thank him for that and all of his technical help. Anna, who's probably, I guess, what the hell would you, besides being my wife and being really gorgeous, she would be, I would say, probably my producer. So I have to thank her. And as everybody does, when I have to thank you. You guys make me want to do this and keep doing it. So we're going to keep it up for a while. I'm not sure how much longer I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it for a while. Anyway, we'll tackle different things at different times. Anybody ever has any suggestions, type them up, email them, and we'll see if I can do something along that line. I like challenges, everybody, just so you know, I don't paint the same old all the time. Okay? Y'all have a good day. I'm going to get some lunch.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.